Welcome back, my fellow boxing fans, and in particular Canelo Alvarez, the Mexican pound for pound, easily the greatest of all time. Just obviously last Sunday or Saturday in America, obviously between the 8th and 9th of May 2021, he became the all-time greatest super middleweight champion. And as you just saw in that little clip, it all happened in the 8th round against Billy Joe Saunders from the UK, where he absolutely dominated him. I'm going to get into that in the round analysis later in the video. And obviously now the unification has happened for him, and obviously he dominated that, and he's proved his supremacy within the super middleweight class, as well as the other weight divisions he's been in the past. And now obviously he's inherited the WBO belt, from BJS, adding to the WBC and WBA collection he already has. As you can see from these photos I'm just bringing up now, was an absolute sellout night, hosted in the Dallas Cowboys stadium in Texas, with a record-breaking 73,126 fans, which is the largest indoor sporting event in UK history, in American history for boxing, and also it's been the largest sporting event since obviously COVID started. So what an amazing night to go out and obviously watch a fight, and I'm very jealous of anyone who was able to go there and watch the fight and the other fights prior to it as well, because what an amazing experience it must have been, especially after all we've gone through from lockdowns and whatnot, and not being able to see live events in such a large scale as well. We know in the build up to this fight there was a lot of trash talk coming from BJS, as expected, and there's always one character in boxing that does it, and he was the man to do that. Canelo, as we know, was always ice cold, very stern, very serious, and he's never really reacted in any way, even when he was younger. He's one of those athletes that just keeps calm and doesn't react to it, doesn't play up to the cameras, doesn't allow that intimidation or joking to get to him. But obviously BJS was using any tactic he could prior to the fight to do that. Obviously unsuccessful. Now, obviously with Canelo, he's 30 years old, so still very young, still very much coming into his prime. He's still got a good couple of years in him. I'd say he's easily got at least 4 or 5 years in him. He's now got an extended record of 59 fights, with wins of 56, wins by KO 38, one loss, and as we know, that's to the amazing Floyd Mayweather back in the day when he was only young as well. I think he was 23 then, I believe, and 2 draws. So obviously on paper the man was always the favourite. Everyone obviously put bets on. People were saying no matter what happens, it will be Canelo by points, because they just felt like the judges would be biased and unfair because the amount of American Mexicans in the crowd. Obviously he was massively, he did benefit from having a home crowd. Obviously most of the fans in there were on his side, whether they were American or American Mexicans. They wanted him to win over BJS, but nonetheless on paper again, and what we've seen from his experience over the years, and he turned professional at 15, for God's sake, it was more than likely going to go his way, despite obviously Billy's good, unbroken record up till now. 30 fights, no losses. Despite what you may think about Billy, with his opponents were bums and not up to scratch, not a good enough standard to really put any pressure on him up till now. Someone like Canelo of his standard, the guy's still won. He's still never lost. He's still never backed up from a fight. And, he, in my opinion, he's a hardy bloke. So it was a shame, obviously, that it didn't go his way. But we're going to get into that shortly when we go on the round analysis. Just one other thing to add on from a mention about Floyd Mayweather. Obviously, that was when he wasn't in his prime or as successful at that stage, Canelo. But he hasn't been, he's unbeaten in 15 fights since then. In 2013 is when he actually went against Floyd. And he's a 4-weight world champion. So, the guy is just absolutely incredible, and it's why I've covered him, because I haven't actually made a video on him before. Have been meaning to for quite some time, because I normally only cover heavyweights as well, but this guy, he deserves my respect, and I'm making this video because he's just an absolute legend. The legacy is already there. So in good old American and also Canelo fashion, there were some over-the-top introductions for the ring walks, and obviously the guys coming into the arena. We had some national anthems from obviously the UK, Mexico and America, and also some entertainment prior to that. Obviously, like I mentioned, most everyone who was there was for Canelo, so he must have been feeling very confident and loving what was going on all around him, and understandably, wouldn't you? You know, obviously, annoyingly for Billy, he did get booed a lot, but he was expecting that. It was bound to happen. Let's face it. When you've got someone who's at the top of their game, especially technically on home soil, you know, it may not be South America, but he still is in the Americas. He's definitely got advantages there. But fair play to BJS. You know, it was the biggest moment of his life as an athlete, and I'm sure he was just excited. But I will say, the ring walk for him and the instruction here was a little bit underwhelming. So anyway, on to the rounds. So the first two, in my opinion, were pretty dull, pretty boring. Can't really say much in terms of points between the two of them. They were just, you know, assessing one another more than anything. Billy does actually start throwing out the jabs, looking to box and move in the southpaw stance. Canelo, as we know, he holds his feet and walks forward and already begins throwing with the left hook. Saunders moves well on his back foot, but Canelo, you know, he's walking down the brick with a very high guard in the second round. He's also making it clear to BJS that if he's expecting to cut the ring off, he's going to give him, you know, a little to work with. So that was obviously how it was going in those first two rounds. In the fourth rounds, Canelo lands a short right hand on the inside as he closed the distance by walking forward. Billy then takes a shot well and continues to box on his back foot, pumping out the jab and posturing with his hands down. All right hands land for Canelo as he inserts his dominance early on in that round. That obviously then gets BJS to come forward, but nothing lands off that to note. There's a counter right uppercut which lands for Canelo, and he obviously gets Billy's attention at that point. Canelo starts investing in body shots as he walks him down. BJ's backed up to the ropes, and obviously Canelo starts banging those body shots again. BJ does actually land some left on the break to make his mark in that round though. So at this point, I think the scorecards were looking a little bit more even. In round 6, Billy starts around lively and pots some successful shots to Canelo, who then retaliates, backing the southpaw, you know, obviously Billy to the ropes, and lands another big right uppercut. Billy looks slick in that round, nicking the action with quick shots, but it's beginning to get walked out in my opinion, and you know, we're starting to see Canelo coming through as the dominant fighter. Billy was definitely backing off quite a lot in my opinion, a few jabs here and there, but nothing to really put any pressure on the Mexican. 7, we see Canelo coming out much more aggressive with a high guard. He lets his hands go and begins to score with the right hand. So he's definitely starting to take things up a notch here, and you can see him starting to accelerate and get into his groove and whatnot. Canelo then ends the round by walking Saunders down, threatening with the left hook and then a right uppercut. Round 8, despite the fact that obviously Canelo's coming into his own, Billy's still doing very well on the defense, and he's managing to hold his own and obviously not get too beat up by Canelo. However, some big uppercut lands come from Canelo as he begins to start showing that aggression again on the foot, and evidently hurts Billy. Billy starts to hold off as he feels the power of Canelo. You can really see that serious raw power in such a short range of motion. You know, the way he can fire that up from such a small body. I kind of compare him to Bruce Lee in that aspect, just that 1-inch punch aspect. And as we're seeing now in these final photos and stills and whatnot of that round 8, this is where that left uppercut lands for Canelo, which obviously puts the pressure on BJS because his right eye immediately starts swelling and starts beginning to close. And this is where we know that he's hurt, and he's just literally surviving in on there, you know, like Canelo was trying his best to get another hit to knock him out, and obviously Billy was just doing all he could to stay out of his way and last. I think it was about 30 seconds from what I can remember when I was watching that round, where he had to hang on in there to get back to the ring. And I was thinking, when he's back to that ring, if he comes back out, he's dead. He's not literally dead, but he's not fighting, you know. And so I wasn't surprised that what happened after that, because his eye was closing up, and obviously that was the clear indicator, as you can see here, that he was hurt. You know, he was rattled, and when you're hit and you know you're hurt, by instinct you stop. And you know, there's been a lot of hate online, a lot of trolling, a lot of people, fanboys, thinking they know what they're talking about. But let's face it, none of you have probably had a fight before, a real fight. You've never really been hurt, so you don't know how it feels. And you know, at the end of the day, I think Billy knew that he was hurt, and if he went back out there, he could potentially go for some get some life-threatening or life-changing injuries. So rightfully so, when he went back to the ring, his coach called it. And from what I read, Canelo said to his corner when he went back, he knew that Billy was going to quit. Once he obviously hit that ferocious uppercut, he knew it'd be game over, and he wouldn't come back from that. And obviously he was right. You know, the guy didn't come back for that. Like I said, Billy's coach said, no, he's out. He's not continuing. And so Canelo's prediction was right, and he knew he's the one who made the contact in the day. He's the one who hit him. He's probably thinking, yeah, he's done. I know I've done him. Shame how it went for Billy, you know, and thank God he's not in any more serious trouble. We'll get onto the hospital aspect in a moment, because the guy was, you know, he had to really fend off a barrage of assaults on him, because Canelo was gunning for him. He wanted to knock him out. Obviously, he went to TKO, as we know, it has ended for that reason, which obviously made him now the unified super middleweight champion. So congratulations to you, Canelo. It was an absolute pleasure to watch, and again, I'm jealous that I wasn't in that crowd with everyone else watching, especially this person filming here. Look how close they are. What an atmosphere there must have been, and to see a living legend, you know, someone with a legacy, and easily one of the best Mexicans of all time, in my opinion. You know, the guy has just done so many crazy things and amazing things in the sport so far from such a young age, and he's still only 30. He's 1 year younger than me. He's 31 soon. I just can't believe it watching the guy. It's just so amazing to see. Hello also went on to say to his trainer that I think I broke his cheek and I knew he wasn't going to come out. So he obviously knew from the contact how badly he hurt him. So, you know, fair play to Billy again, and commiserations, mate. It's a real shame, but congratulations to one of a kind. You are an amazing athlete and boxer, Canelo, and we can't wait to see who you're going to fight next. Immediately after the fight, obviously, Billy was taken to hospital for immediate assessment, and obviously for a suspected fractured eye socket, which we've later learned on is a quadrupod injury. So it's quite severe, to be honest, guys. And, you know, seeing this photo here coming up, just the severity of it. So I'm not sure if it's going to end his career. They haven't given more details as yet, but you can see here the statement from Eddie that he's in hospital. And obviously, again, this is obviously what Billy's trainer was saying. You know, he never actually asked me to take him out. He left the decision to me. So people called him a coward and whatnot. But just a little bit about Daniel Dubois here. Obviously, we know last year he put the fist down and took to the knee in his fight against Joe Joyce. And obviously, he got a lot of backlash from people, and including Billy. Billy was actually hating on him, saying, you know, why did you do that? But then obviously Daniel, funny enough, was actually supporting him. So it's ironic there, and shows real true sportsmanship, despite the fact that he was actually kind of discredited by Billy himself in the first place. It's official statement from Billy himself about the broken eye socket and broken cheekbone in 3 places. So obviously that confirms the severity of his injury from that uppercut. So get well, Billy. Rest up. Commiserations. I did think overall you boxed quite well, but you wasn't up to the standard that you needed to be for someone with such class as Canelo. I hope you're not going to be out of it and you can come back in the future, but we will see what the future has in store for you. Obviously, there's still big things of Eddie here and Canelo. Seems like they're best buddies. And funny enough, this statement here that Canelo said even before the fight started to Eddie, who's next? That's how confident he was. So obviously that leads us on to the Plant and Canelo IBF potential fights. So Caleb Plant, if you don't know him, he's the American and he currently holds the IBF crown at 168 pounds, and he seems like the most logical and obvious choice for Canelo. And at the end of the fight, actually here he's speaking to obviously the interview, he's saying, I'm coming for you, you know, Caleb, I won that fight, I'm coming, get ready. I'm ready and I'm coming for that, because that's going to be the last belt on his notch to own all the belts. So, you know, this fight is more than likely to happen. It's the one we all want, to be honest. Good news for Canelo, obviously, because he's a network free agent, he actually has a decision of who he fights and where. So it's not a complicated fight at all, and Eddie even confirmed that. So that's going to be obviously a very good prospect. And DAZN actually, they're going to make a massive offer for the fight, as will Fox, but I think DAZN will get it. Plant is a solid fighter, you know, a very good one, and he's never tasted defeat in the paid ranks, who actually won the Golden Gloves in 2011. Whether or not he can withstand the abuse from Canelo, that's obviously a different story. But that is more than likely going to happen, and I'm really hoping that's going to happen very swiftly. In other news, after the fight, Demetrius Andrade crashed into the event and was basically shouting out abuse to some other guy. Maybe he's trained, I'm not too sure. And obviously the Mexican, who's not always been the best speaking English, actually spoke back to him and said, oh man, you know, whilst laughing, folding his arms, you fight with nobody. Please get the fuck out of here, man. It's my night, you know. Get the fuck out of here. Because if you don't get the fuck out of here right now, motherfucker, you're never going to get the fight, you know. And he's just basically saying, get out, you know, you're a horrible fighter. I've got no interest in you at all. No interest whatsoever. So he obviously switched from his normal ice cold character and was rattled by him. Andrade definitely pissed him off. But despite the fact that Andrade, who's coming off the back of a solid win over Liam Williams last month, he will not be boxing the biggest star. You know, he's definitely lacking there. You know, the best fighter of all time, you know, is one belt short becoming the first undisputed super middle heavyweight champion in either 3 or 4 belt era. The only man who's stopping him right now is Caleb Plant, the IBF champion, like I mentioned. So that's who we need to see, and that's what we're going to be looking for. So this Andrade guy, I can't pronounce his name, I don't care. It's not going to happen. It's not. Very nice thing we saw at the end of the fight was that of another previous Mexican legend, Julio Cesar Chavez, where he was obviously watching on the fight, and he actually congratulated Canelo at the end of the fight. And you know, if you do some research onto Julio, he was a free weight world champion himself back in the day. So the guy, you know, the respect between these two fellow countrymen and fellow amazing boxers, both Mexican, was something quite nice to see. So that was a great thing to see as well. So guys and girls, I hope you liked today's video. If you did, as always, please remember to either like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already. And let me know in the comment section below what you thought about the fight and what you think's next for Canelo. Is it going to be obviously Plant, or is it going to be someone else? What's going to happen? But anyway, take care and I'll see you soon. Amigo Fitness, signing out.